So in this tutorial, we'll be making a bullet hell type game. Here's one that I made earlier. This will be very similar to the game that we'll be making in the tutorial, with some additional features and design changes. So let's start up Unity. I'll be using 2018.1, but it should work fine with whatever version you use. There'll be little code changes for this game across any versions. So we're going to call our game Bullet Hell Game, or we'll call it 2D Bullet Hell Game, and we'll use a 2D template, and we'll click Create Project. So just before we begin, I should mention that this tutorial should be suitable for both new and advanced Unity users, but if you're completely new, I would recommend you to watch a crash course and orientate yourself with the UI, as that really helps. So the focus of this tutorial will be to create a player controllable object using the WASD keys. So let's start. So here's our project, and we have a 2D UI because we selected a 2D camera mode, but we can toggle between 2D and 3D. So let's right click here and F2 to rename, and we'll call this player. This is going to be our player game object. We're going to zero them off to the origin, and we're going to click on our player, and we're going to add a rigid body component. This rigid body component will allow us to take advantage of Unity's physics system with velocity and mass and all that good stuff. So we can adjust the settings of the rigid body for our character controls, but here are some controls that I've made earlier. Next, we're going to add a box collider 2D, and this is going to allow this object to have collision. So we'll want to right click on our player next, click Create Empty, and we're going to hit F2 and rename it to Sprite. And here's where we're going to add a sprite render component. So currently I'll be using placeholder sprites, so I'm just going to click this UI sprite, and we'll press 4 to scale it up. So next, we're going to click on our player object. We're going to click Add Component, and here we're going to add a script. So we'll type in the name Bullet Hell Player, and then we'll click Create Mad, and we'll double click on our script name, and this should open up your tool of choice for programming. So while that opens up, there's a few things that we want to be able to do in our script. So one of these is take advantage of the physics provided by Rigidbody 2D. And secondly, we're going to want to accelerate our object's velocity in different directions. So what we're going to need is an acceleration variable for how fast our car is going to move. And then we're going to need a reference to Rigidbody 2D so we can change the parameters. So here's our velocity, vector 2. And here's our rigid body. And I'm just going to change it to private so other classes can't see it. So because we made our rigid body public, we'll be able to assign it a value in the inspector whenever the script compiles. So I'm just going to drag the rigid body down there, and that's the rigid body that we're going to be editing. So next, we'll want to be able to take the player's input. So we're going to create a function called void take input. So in order to be able to add to the rigid body's current velocity, we're going to need to create a vector 2 velocity, and it's going to be equal to the rigid body's current velocity. Why is that not coming up? Just a little typo. So rigid body 2d.velocity. Then we're going to use Unity's input.getKey function, which allows us to detect the player's key presses. So here I'm going to type input.getKey keycode.w, and you can use whatever key code you want here, and there's even key codes for the mouse. So next, we're going to do an else, and we're going to check for the keycode.s. And then we're going to copy this whole block down and replace W and S with A and D. So when we press W, we want to add to the player's Y velocity to make him go up. So what I'll do is velocity.y plus equals acceleration.y. So next, when we press the S button, we want to actually do velocity.y minus equals acceleration.y. Then we press A, we're going to want to change our x velocity. So we'll type velocity.x minus equals acceleration.x. And when we want to go right, we'll do velocity.x plus equals acceleration.x. So after we change the velocity variable, we're going to need to pass this back into our rigid body. So we're going to go rigid body 2D dot velocity equals velocity. So then we're going to want to call this in our update function, and this will get called once per frame. So let's go in game and check it out. So I'm going to press W here. Okay, so I've actually forgotten to do something here. Okay, I've forgotten to set the velocity variable. So what happens in C# is this is going to get defaulted to 0. So we'll set it to 1515 and go back into the game. So perfect, we can move. It's a little bit too fast, but that's no worries. Let's go back into our code. So because we're running this in the update function, this is going to run once per frame. Thing is, the high spec machines can do more frames than low spec machines, but since we're adding velocity every frame, this can get a bit pear-shaped. So what we do is we introduce a time.delta time, and we multiply this by the speed, and this will mean that high spec machines and low spec machines do calculations at the same time. Moves a lot better, right? And it'll run the same on any FPS. So next, we're going to want to add some walls so our player can't escape the level. So we're going to right click, create game object, and we're going to F2 to rename it to walls. Then we're going to create an empty child object, F2, and name this collider. Then we're going to go to walls, we're going to zero it off. And inside the collider, we're going to add a box collider 2D object. We're just going to scale it up to be correct size to cover the camera screen. Then we're going to use the shortcut Control D to duplicate it and drag it down. Then we're going to duplicate it once more, drag it up and to the left, resize it, and there's our left boundary. And then we're going to Control D that one more time, drag it to the right, and there's our right boundary. So let's see how that works. Alright, perfect. Now our player can't escape the game. So before I finish off this tutorial, I'm going to create another game object called road. And in the same way as the player, I'm going to give it a child game object with a placeholder sprite. So I'm going to add this to sprite render. I'm just going to choose the same sprite that I did for the player, except we're going to make it black so it stands out. And then we're going to press OR to scale it up. Now you'll notice that the road is blocking the player, so this is because of this order and layer variable here, and that's how sprites get drawn. So we're going to set our player to be 20, and then he's going to get drawn above the road. And so that's all for this tutorial. In the next one, we're going to cover how to get the player moving along the road, but not in the way that you first might think. Alright, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.